Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Distribution Strategy Group Technology Leader Panel, AI, Machine Learning, and Robotics for Distributors. We have fantastic panelists today. We've got Andrew Kramer from Proton.ai, Jason Hine from Bloomreach, and Graham Smith from Esker. Welcome, gentlemen. Hey, it's great to see you all. My name is Ian Heller. I am the Chief Strategy Officer for Distribution Strategy Group. We're delighted to bring this panel together. We have a whole bunch of stuff going on in the world of distribution when it comes to AI, and I wanted to make sure everybody knew about our upcoming conference, Applied AI for Distributors. That's October 3rd through 5th at the Chicago Marriott O'Hare. Really easy to get to. We're delighted to welcome Zach Cass, who will do a 60-minute keynote, followed by 30 minutes of Q&A. He's the head of go-to-market for OpenAI, which produces that ChatGPT. Tickets are selling very, very briskly. We've got a lot of sponsors signed up. We're announcing a bunch of speakers this week for the general session, and additionally, some of the breakouts too. So please go to distributionstrategy.com, click on the banner at the top, and I hope you will join us in Chicago. All right, let's get this party started with some introductions. Andrew, you want to tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what Proton does?
Absolutely. So thanks so much for having me, Ian. I'm Andrew Kramer. I'm CEO of Proton AI. I've been with Proton for a little over 4 years now, working really closely with a lot of our enterprise customers who've been rolling out the software. Proton is a tool that is all about using artificial intelligence to generate sales insights that you guys can then action to grow sales with your customers. And so think insights like wallet share gaps. So where are there places where your customers are not buying something from you that they should be buying from you, or that they're maybe getting from a competitor? Defensive opportunities. So things like where are there places that a customer is due to reorder a product or maybe down in sales in a product, using AI to generate those kind of opportunities. We really see our customers use that for two use cases. One is putting those insights in the hand of reps, so sales reps can use with their customers. And then the other is using those insights to generate proactive recommendations on the e-commerce site. So we've been seeing a lot of success with folks using AI to do it. Really excited to be here today.
Fantastic. Thank you, Andrew. Great overview. Jason, would you like to go next, please?
Sure. Jason Hine. I've spent the last 26 years of my life on this earth working in B2B and industrial distribution. Started off working for McMaster-Carr, spent some time at Amazon Business, did about 6 years of consulting, and I now work at Bloomreach. And at Bloomreach, my role is really to kind of, help lead our go-to-market into the B2B distribution space. And basically what I'd say Bloomreach does is the platform itself is a search and merchandising tool that fundamentally uses the behavior on your site of your buyers and of your customers to turn your customers into your merchandisers, so that you don't need to spend a whole lot of time doing like the tactical work associated with maintaining synonyms and looking for patterns. Is you really let the machine learning element built off of 14 years of powering search and merchandising for some of the biggest distributors in B2B, to let your people spend more time doing the work that actually builds and drives your business. Because as we all know, everybody loves e-commerce, but everybody really, really wants it to pay for itself. And that's really what we help companies do.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jason. Another great overview. Graham Smith, welcome to the program. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and about Esker?
Definitely. Thanks for having me. Hey, everybody, I'm Graham Smith. I'm a business development manager here at Esker. I have about 10 years of experience working either in or with manufacturers and distributors. Today, my focus is on helping companies that are really struggling to more effectively and efficiently manage some of those customer service processes. For example, order entry, quote creation, claims management, are working in maybe a shared inbox that's has a lot of inquiries coming in, and then also helping them to allow their customers to be more self-servicing.
Fantastic. Thank you. That was very, very helpful. And, it's interesting because all three of you are coming at the solving problems in distribution with AI and other technologies from completely different angles and aimed at different parts of the business processes or that distributors operate. So it's going to be really interesting to see how you have different points of view on the topics that we're going to discuss today. For the attendees, and we have a lot of them today, please feel free to submit questions. There's a Q&A button that is on the Zoom bar. And there will be a recording available, since we always get asked, and that's exciting to know that people are interested. There will be a recording available. If you've registered for this webinar, you will get a link in the next couple of days that includes a recording to this conversation. All right, so let's get some of the clutter out of the way so I can see you guys. Okay, let's start with kind of a broad question. And that is, what kind of impact are you seeing AI have on distributors already? And are there some standout examples of distributors who are using AI that you can share? You don't have to name them if you don't want to, but what is the impact you're seeing in these early days, and any standout examples? I don't know, Andrew, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what we've seen distributors really succeed in just growing top line, growing revenue using the AI-driven insights that tools like ours drive. I think about a specific customer as a great example of that, who they're a multi-billion-dollar industrial distributor. So in the industrial MRO and sort of related industrial product space, they were launching an inside sales team from scratch, so a proactive outbound inside sales team, which has the unique challenge of you're not an outside sales rep, you're not in the field gathering the kind of intelligence that outside reps would have from being in person. And so you need to find another way to make these reps smart, right? To give them things, hey, here's what you should talk about, here's intelligence specific to this account. They rolled out our solution, their reps got very heavily reliant on our sales insights, and it was just a home run for them. They found that their reps that were using Proton were growing sales 1,000 basis points faster than the reps that weren't. So just a huge, huge insight from using those AI-driven insights.
And that's not just the application of a process for doing incremental sales. It's that the insights were coming from machine learning, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I think you have to have both together, right? You have to have a process that gets folks actually acting on the insights, but then the insights themselves, if you're pitching a bunch of things and no one's buying it, you have the best process in the world, and that's not driving a lot of sales, right? So it's really the two together.
Yeah, I mean, relevance drives response, right? I mean, you have to do the offers or you have to make the suggestions, but the higher the relevance and interest to the customer, or the higher the relevance to the customer, the higher the interest, so the more conversion you get.
Definitely.
So what do you think, Graham? You want to tell us about your impressions of how AI is already impacting distributors, and do you know of any examples you want to give us?
Definitely. And, I mentioned that my focus is on the customer service side of the house here at Asker, but the first thing that came to my mind is oftentimes in distribution, there's a lot of customers and there's a lot of vendors, right? Asker not only focuses on the customer service side of the house, but also accounts payable and accounts receivable as well. So being able to augment pieces of those processes, pieces of that workforce can substantially help with the operational costs associated with some of these processes, with a headcount that's being allocated to accounts payable, accounts receivable, customer service. In a couple stories that come to mind really on the customer service side, and I can't mention any names, but one company comes to mind where on average it was taking them about 45 minutes to be able to process a single order, because the orders that they were receiving had long item numbers. They're getting 400 to 800 lines per order, and we were able to reduce the amount of order entry time from 45 minutes to 2 minutes by leveraging AI to extract some of that data, validate that data against the ERP, and then pass that information along with a simple validation step within there.
Yeah, so that's going way beyond old technologies like optical character recognition. You're actually using, again, machine learning to understand the customer's intent. Is that right?
Right. It's a combination. There is some OCR in there, but it's a mixture of some of our proprietary technology alongside OCR and machine learning.
Got it. Okay. And you work on AR and AP as well. You have tools for that. And, having been around distribution since 1880, if I remember correctly, one of the biggest, most important drivers of profitability and business sustainability for distributor is the ability to turn their cash, right? So you have to collect cash swiftly, you have to turn your inventory. And there's a formula called cash conversion cycle. And I remember a few years ago, I did a cash conversion cycle for Amazon. Theirs is actually negative. So they're getting paid before they pay anybody else, right? And so Jason, you were at Amazon, helped build Amazon Business, so that this is a really important profit driver for any marketplace, right? Because the nature of the business model. But the other advantage they have is they have a wider assortment than any single distributor does. But you and I have talked before, and you say, yeah, the assortment's there, but the merchandising and the personalization is not. Is that right?
I think that for consumers, I think Amazon is fine.
Okay.
Like Amazon has the widest, sloppiest selection on the planet. And I think that is really the opportunity for distributors when they would talk to me about like how do we compete with Amazon? I would say to them, have you ever tried to buy the product that you sell on Amazon? Have you ever tried to find something on Amazon? You just can't. And when we're talking about like, that's the core value proposition of a distributor. It's not just that you're a warehouse where the stuff people need happens to be sitting that day. It's that you can help tell them which of the items in your warehouse is the thing that they need that day. And where AI comes into it, and I want to specify, like, this is definitely much more on the kind of machine learning side of AI, right? We're all very aware of the fact that AI as a term is getting a lot of blurriness around it right now, because there's the machine learning side, which is patterns, looking at patterns and recognizing patterns in the behavior of your customers. And then there's sort of the generative AI that's happening right now. And it's important that we differentiate between those, because I think where a lot of distributors are seeing bang for their buck in the immediate term is on the machine learning side. That's certainly where, I know Bloomreach and Andrew, I'm a little familiar with the Proton side. Like that's where a lot of that strength is coming from.
Yeah.
A lot of the concern and fear, the fear, anxiety, and doubt, right, that we see being talked about AI in general is on the generative side, the creative side, where, and so I think it's important for this conversation that we kind of like we're making that distinction between generative versus machine learning AI, because I think it's important that everybody in the audience today understand that. On the machine learning side, when it comes to discovery, you got to think about who's your best salesperson, right? Your best salesperson is the one who remembers the most anecdotes. Oh, yes, you tell me this problem. I remember I had a similar customer who had this problem and they used this product and they used it in this way. Like the more of those anecdotes that salesperson can remember and recall and make recommendations about, the better a salesperson that they are. And what a machine learning based discovery and merchandising solution does is it's basically a salesperson who remembers every single conversation, every single transaction, every single item that was ever bought, along with everything else, and can make recommendations based on that. And so when we've seen customers really excel is in leaning hard into building on that ability of that perfect sales rep to remember everything, to scale their ability to personalize the experience of each buyer based on their region, based on their segment, based on their industry, because you just can't do that any other way.
Yeah.
And that's where people are starting to pull away.
Okay. So I'm going to go off script here because you made me think of something. So surprise question. So having done market research for many, many years, I've often said that if I were to condense what customers are asking for into a single request, it would be, please make my job easier. So it's pretty broad, right? Could be easier to sell more, to be more accurate, to provide better quality, to get more profits, reduce hassles. So for each of you, how does your technology, who does it make the job easier for? And this could be someone who works for the distributor, someone who works for the customer, or both, right? And how does it make their job easier? So, who does your technology make the job easier for, and what does it do that makes it easier? So, Andrew, you want to start?
Yeah, definitely. I would say two things there, and I would give an answer both at the distributor and then for the customer themselves. I think something that we've really seen for making the sales reps' life easier, and I think that's critical for any of these initiatives, right? Because if it's not easy for the sales rep and it requires action by the sales rep, they are not going to do it. Something that we have seen is just how do you give them all of the information in one spot that they would otherwise have to track down from 10 different systems, and they got to-do lists on a notepad, and they've got quotes in an Excel file somewhere, and it's just really, really hard to keep track of. How do you put all of that in one place? So they are saying, I'm about to talk to this customer. Let me pull up that customer and have a view of that customer where I have everything in one spot. And it's like the easy button for my ERP. It's the easy button for my, personal Excel files, whatever it might be. And that's partially about AI, and that's partially just about having software that makes data really, really easy to see. So I think that's definitely something we've invested a lot in, is how do you make the data visibility for the reps as easy to use and access as possible. And then I think from the customer standpoint, if you're a customer of a distributor, you want the products you need when you need them and to never run out. And by the way, let me keep my inventory as thin as possible while achieving that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you as a distributor are offering proactive insights to your customers, that makes them easier to achieve that by doing things like, hey, like we realized before you did that you're about to run out of this product. Like, let me reach out to you and help you fulfill it. We realized before you did that this product that you used to use, that's no longer being manufactured. And so you're going to need a substitute for it. Here are some options. That makes the customer's life a lot easier because it helps them make sure that they always have what they need.
Yeah. I mean, you're not doing a customer any favors if you don't remind them to pick up something that they need to use the other thing that they bought, right? So if you sell them a saw, don't remind them that they need saw blades for it. It's just annoying when they get home and go, right? Okay. Graham, we'll turn to you now. So who does your technology make their job easier, or whose job is easier because they use Esker, and what does it do that makes their job easier?
Right. And I think on my side, very similar to what Andrew was saying, is it's really on both sides. It's the employee as well as the customer, right? So, what I hear oftentimes is that company's customer service group is bogged down with orders, with quotes, with inquiries that are coming in, and they don't have the ability to communicate with those customers in a timely fashion. There was a company that distributed laboratory supplies that I was working with a couple of years ago, and they said that it took 48 to 72 hours from reception to entry of an order. And
Wow.
This was during COVID. So you can imagine, how hospitals are feeling about the fact that they can't get their laboratory supplies to be able to test, for COVID, to be able to, do various other tasks, right? And that really hinders that relationship, right? That led them to losing customers, that led them to losing orders because somebody else could fulfill that faster. So being able to facilitate that transaction sooner, and then also being able to communicate any kind of expectations or address any questions or help reconcile maybe any claims that a customer has, is going to increase the retention. It's going to make their lives easier. It's going to make them happier. And then that's going to end up making them, the go-to supplier for that customer.
Yeah. And it's not just not being annoying. It's being more productive, right? I mean, if I'm not spending time cleaning up messes, I can get more done. And also I think, the world has just changed. You can't wait 48 hours to enter orders anymore. That's not the competitive standard. Okay, Jason, whose job is easier because of Bloomreach's technology, and how is it so?
Like everybody on this call, I would say that Bloomreach really solves the problem of two people. One is the outside sales rep, because outside sales reps have two parts of their job. They have the part that they love and the part that they hate. The part that they love is the relationship building, the problem solving, the consultative selling, the, hey, I'm here at a spindle. Try this. Oh, you're working in carbon fiber for the first time. Hey, try something like this.
Mm-hmm.
That'll reduce the splitting. The part that they hate is the, hey, I just need to replace this one product. Here's a part number. Can you give me, I need one each of this. Can you get me that? It's sitting in the parking lot for a half an hour waiting for that email order to come in,
Right.
like when you could be spending that time. And so the whole point of digital is to help your best salespeople spend less time doing the work that they hate, so they can spend more time doing the work that they love, and is what actually builds the relationship. So that's a part of it, is how do we, if we can create a decent digital discovery experience that can help those buyers self-service themselves on the easy, low value add types of transactions, that's really productive and frankly, more profitable in terms of making them more money on their commissions for their salespeople. The second element is the merchandising team. Most distribution companies, if you weren't one of those big catalog houses, don't have merchandising. It's a new concept. And so like I've worked with some companies where the merchandising team was one person and then like a support staff over in Eastern European somewhere. And the whole point of machine learning and AI is to basically use all of that behavior data so that you're not doing the tactical kinds of thing. You don't have to have people doing synonym mapping. You don't have to have people working the null results report every week like I used to have to do at McMaster-Carr. Is the merchandising person can actually use the insights and the analytics coming with the platform. And there are like playbooks and there's all these A/B testing that's all built in so that you can try things that actually move the needle on your numbers, make your business more revenue generation, make that revenue more profitable, make your customers' experience that much easier and better so that your customer satisfaction ranking goes through the roof. Those are the three metrics that your C-suite executives care about: revenue, profitability, and customer satisfaction. And we help support all three.
Fantastic. Okay, good, great. So Graham, why don't we start with you on this one? B2B customers have much more complex needs when it comes to ordering products. It's not like consumers, right? I mean, everything consumer buys, typically it's shrink wrapped on the shelf, they shrink wrap, same packaging, or maybe inside another box during transportation, hand it over to the customer, nothing changes, right? That's not really how B2B operates much of the time. B2B customers, need to have tools like CPQ, configure price quote, or the ability to read orders that are just lists of product specifications. They're not always precise, part numbers. So how can AI start to address some of those challenges better than our old tools did?
The first thing that comes to mind, and this is something that we're really trying to tackle here at Oscar, is with unstructured data, right?
Okay.
A lot of, I recall when I was in distribution and I used to sell industrial products, and my customers would send me an email or text that said, hey, I need those gloves. I need that mask that I ordered last week. I need 6 of these. And for a long time, there's really no solution that's been able to accurately be able to pick that up. Companies have made a lot of investments in EDI, in e-commerce, in OCR type tools, but they just didn't fit the bill. And now if you go into more configurable type industrial manufacturing, a lot of times what somebody's looking for, especially in building materials, is they're sending in an order. There might be 700 lines and they're all just descriptions, right? So being able to leverage generative AI and large language models to decipher what that information is, be able to then map some of that language back to what might be getting entered is very helpful. And not only with that order, but also with that quote, with any kind of product questions, being able to interact, answer those product questions, display pricing, or a lot of times what we're seeing recently is with claims. In a distribution model, transportation, things might get damaged. If there aren't effective warehouse management systems, maybe there's shortages or overages. And a lot of times those are all high effort areas of work. And then in addition, in some of the distribution models that I've worked in, there's a combination of tiered pricing, contract pricing, unit specific pricing, and there might be a system in place, but oftentimes at the point of entry, at the point of quote creation, you have to go in there, enter the information, go into a separate module, look at an Excel spreadsheet, go into the CRM, validate what it is, email the sales rep to make sure that you're going to warrant this price, even though it's 15 days past due, and being able to aggregate either those lookups, those communications in a centralized repository, a single pane of glass, if you will, really helps to create the efficiency within those processes.
That's great. Very interesting. Okay, good. Thank you. Andrew, same question, just as a refresher. B2B customers have much more complex needs when it comes to ordering products. And just broadly, what are some tools available now or will be available in the future to bring solutions to these more complex needs?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think something that to me really sticks out about how B2B is different from B2C is just the expectation of the idea that the distributor will take care of you as a customer. So as an example, like I think about myself, if I buy a toothbrush on Amazon and I forget to buy the toothpaste that goes with it, I don't get mad at Amazon. I get mad at myself, right? That was on me to remember that. And the consequences, by the way, aren't that bad, right? I spend one more day like squeezing the last bit out of an existing tube, and then I just buy a new tube the next day. In B2B, there's a much higher expectation that the sales rep is there to take care of you, right? So if you're a factory that's buying a complex sensor, for example, and there's some component that you need to buy to make that product work, there's an expectation that the sales rep is going to know that and be proactive in taking care of you and make the product work for you. And the stakes are a lot higher, obviously, as well, right? My toothpaste, case is pretty low stakes. If the sensor doesn't work in the factory, that production line could be down for a day or however long, and that's costing you a lot of money as a customer, right? And so I think what we've seen is the more experienced reps, right? Folks that have been at a company 20 or 30 years, they've just kind of learned and intuited from experience how to provide that level of proactivity. If you have a newer sales rep that's been there 1, 2, 3 years, it's really, really hard to know how to do that unless you have a tool that says, hey, here are the proactive steps you should be taking with this customer to deliver them the experience they expect. And so I think that's definitely a case where AI and a tool like ours comes in, is to how do you help all sales reps, and especially those newer reps, know how to deliver that more proactive experience.
Yeah, when you go walk into a Target, you don't need the people there to be looking at an AI tool to answer questions about, what aisle has the dog food in it, right? But that's a simple need, to your point. It's like toothpaste, right? So, but in B2B, the products are much more technical and they're much more interrelated. And if you go wrong, production lines stop or whatever, right? So those are good points. Jason, how are these new tools going to help meet the more complex needs of B2B customers, whether that's, CPQ, reading hard to read handwritten parts lists, or something else?
Yeah, Andrew, I love your, Zeno's paradox of toothpaste dispension, how there's always one more day of toothpaste. You just have to squeeze it a little bit harder. I think that so the nature of B2B versus B2C is a difference about, in B2B, we have to change contexts much more quickly. When I'm designing an experience around a consumer, I am designing that experience around the long-held personal preferences of that human, which, I'm going to speculate that those of us on this call probably have been using the same toothpaste since we were little kids. Like things like brand loyalty, like we develop personal preferences. In B2B, though, the needs that any company has on any given day, are there preferences? Sure. But the real driver is, what is the application that I'm doing today? What is this project? If I'm an electrical contractor and I'm working on helping to install a new production line at a chicken processing plant in Kentucky, I'm going to need very different kinds of switches and push buttons and actuators than I'm going to need if I'm going to be doing a renovation on a hospital in downtown Chicago in a month. And the ability to kind of quickly pick up on, the fact that there are changes in behavior. Hey, last month when they searched for switch, they were clicking on and engaging in these kinds of products, versus now they're completely changing it. And so we have to be able to adapt and tune and refine the recommendations and the results and the experience that we're serving up accordingly. The other element is that a lot of distributors sell to a broad variety of customers, right? I've got contractors, I've got research universities, I've got hospitals, I've got welding and fabrication shops, I've got aerospace customers. And every time that I bring in a new customer in a new segment, you know what? I've learned a lot from all of my existing customers that are in that business. So I'm ideally going to be better served if when that user from that new customer in that industry that I already have some experience serving is able to have their experience on my site immediately tuned and personalized to their industry. If I can do that without having to give it like a month or two of training data, where I can just quickly say like, hey, you're an aerospace customer. We know that. I can make sure that the search results that I serve up are contextualized around your industry on day one. That's incredibly powerful. That makes you and your website look like you understand your customer and your customer's business far more than Amazon does on day one. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. And so we're back to relevance, right? I mean, Facebook has learned that I love motorcycles and photography and history. And so, guess what I see, right? Okay. We have a couple questions, actually 3. So the first one is, and maybe this should be a recommendation rather than direct answer about what you're doing. Someone's saying, are you creating your own language models or are you using models that are already out there? And I might recast that to say, what would you recommend that distributors do? So I'm not asking you to reveal anything that you do. And if so, which one? I mean, a lot of people are plugging ChatGPT in through API to something. And the person says distribution part language is so complex, I imagine it is tough. Anyone want to tackle that question? If you were a distributor, what would you do?
I mean, I would say specifically when it comes to kind of the generative side, right? Like the thought that any one distributor, I mean, even the Grangers of the world, have enough data to power a true large language model is a bit of a stretch. I think that I'm going to speculate that most everybody on this call, when we're in the generative world, we are leveraging the power of some of the existing large language models out there, of which there are a number. But it's what you layer on top of it, right? Think of this like we're all building cakes here, right? The thing that the cake is built on is the cake itself. Could be white cake, yellow cake, chocolate cake. But what is the wow factor is how you frost it. It's how do I build on top of that cake has been built to create an experience that looks amazing. And that's really where, the thought of trying to build your own language model, to me, smells like an awful lot of resources being wasted when they could be used far more productively for your customers.
It looks like you got a couple people agreeing with you. So, Andrew, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I just totally agree. I think that if you look at, Google out there, Microsoft, Harvard, like I think the notion that any distributor by themselves is going to beat them from like a model architecture standpoint, it's really, really not a chance. I think the good news is so much of this stuff is now out there from like an open source and available to be used by others standpoint. But I think Jason's metaphor is well put. You can take a model or an architecture that someone else has come up with, and you can say, okay, what do I bring to the mix, either in terms of proprietary data that I can sort of add to this and use in my use case, and or proprietary or use case specific applications of how I use it. So I think it's very, very well said what Jason said.
Graham?
Yeah, I think Jason's a lot better at analogies than I am. But what I've seen, when we're dealing with complex part numbers, for example, right, is that there is some training and onboarding that's necessary, right? That model is supposed to learn over time. That doesn't mean that day one you turn it on, it's perfect. That means that there are going to be some touches, there is going to be some consideration, set of human eyes that are needed to review, validate that information, and over time it'll get smarter and smarter and smarter.
Great. Okay, good. So I want to go on to the next topic. So Ron has asked a question, but I want to preface it by saying we're announcing a keynote this week at our upcoming conference, and the title of her presentation is 10 Easy Tips for How to Use AI to Destroy Everything You've Built. So she's talking about the risks, obviously, of AI. Okay, so Ron wants to know, with AI, there's so much concern about security and information getting out to the web. There have been documented breaches. How do you address the security concerns? How are they different with AI, and how do you address them? So who wants to take your crack at that?
I can touch on that first. I
Go
was
ahead.
actually just on the phone the other day with the CISO of one of our current customers, who is a manufacturer and distributor in the building materials industry. And their biggest concern, we are putting generative AI, specifically OpenAI, ChatGPT, into our product. And at least for us, we are using the private section of OpenAI and ChatGPT, not the ChatGPT that anybody can log on to on the internet, which means that data is housed, it's safer in a private cloud on the Azure servers. Now, one thing that he informed me of is he was looking at other tools for, say, marketing, where they just had an open API that just tapped into the consumer version, right? So that means that any data that is going through that tool is also going into the learning model for the service as a whole, versus that provision section that would be there for your business.
Okay, so let me be clear and make sure I understand what you're saying. So if you're just using open ChatGPT or whatever, the open version, and you put information about your company, you are contributing training data to the model, right?
That is accurate. So I think more specifically, the question to ask is, if you are looking at AI, if you are looking at generative AI, ask the questions of, where is that data being housed? How are you managing that data? What are the safe holds? In our instance, we are using the B2B version, which means the only thing that's being housed is metadata for 30 days for diagnostic purposes.
Got it. Right. But I mean, there are penalties to disclosing data, like financial performance data. You could get yourself sideways with the SEC because you have an analyst who's using an open model to get answers or do some analysis. So, I mean, this is a big deal. Go ahead, Jason.
I think there was actually a case a month or two ago where somebody from Samsung had actually had used some of their own internal code and submitted it as part of a query because they were trying to use ChatGPT to create some optimized code. And well, hey, they used the open system. So guess what? All of that proprietary data that Samsung uploaded is now living within the world.
Wow.
Oops.
Andrew, you want to add anything to that?
I'll just totally agree with those two. And I'll quick piggyback on Graham. Ours is exactly the same way. So your data goes into our system. It's in a private cloud that no one else has access to, not feeding into any public models.
Right. But that's not something that people have thought about before. I mean, it used to be, you do searches, you don't think that you're contributing data to the world. So this is a new era.
And then I think something I'd added, another question I see on here is, should I build something myself versus buy?
Right.
One caution I put out there among many of trying to build something yourself is, if you're going to buy something, you're probably going to put it through a strict security review to make sure things like this aren't happening with any vendor you go with. Make sure you do the same review on anything you build, because it can be a lot easier for something small like that to kind of slip in when it's just, hey, someone junior on the team is trying something out.
Right. Okay, good. And I'm glad you're getting ahead to the questions. We got a bunch of them now. So you referred to build versus buy, Andrew, and then so Graham, same question. How are distributors going with the build versus buy conundrum for AI and ML tools?
I've seen it go both ways, right? Some companies have the preference to build, some companies have the preference to buy. I think historically, a lot of IT groups wanted to build different functionality. They wanted to build a logic in-house. And I think a lot of companies are starting to transition to leveraging third-party services because of the maintenance aspect of that. On the flip side, I've seen a lot of companies that said, hey, we're going to go build it, and then came back to us because they could, or came back to us because they didn't have the necessary resources. And really, when it comes to trying to build, an AI, machine learning, generative AI type model, unless you have 60 to 80 resources that you can focus full time on it for a large global model, it might not make sense. At least do your due diligence, see what's out there. If you decide that you can, accomplish that in-house, go for it, but just be open to the idea that there's going to be a lot of maintenance.
Jason, you want to add anything to that?
I would say that, there's really two things that to consider here when the build versus buy discussion. One, do you have the developers on your team that are so good that they are going to build something better than what, certainly any of our three companies have come up with the, dozen plus years of experience that we have. And if so, how good is your compensation package going to have to be to keep them from getting poached by Google or Amazon or one of the other FANG companies?
Right.
People that can code like that are very rare, very valuable commodities. And to Graham's point, right? You might have some genius person who's able to build together some miraculous thing, but can you keep them around? And then once they leave, like, how good are the notes in their code? Is somebody else going to be able to understand it? Second point, the thing that makes an experience unique about what AI can do is not necessarily the algorithms. The thing that makes it unique is the behavior that drives the algorithm. It's what are your customers doing? What are your buyers doing? That's the thing that creates the uniqueness of the insights that are being provided by all three of our solutions. And so why would a company invest in building something that's just going to take the truly unique aspect of your relationship with your customers and power it when you can? I mean, do you own your own steel mills?
Yeah, I get it.
To create the racking in your warehouses?
Yeah, you're going to build your own delivery trucks. I mean,
right, exactly. Like where does it end?
Right,
we're not all
right.
Henry Ford.
Right. Yeah, good. Fortunately, Andrew, I know you kicked us off on that question, but did you want to add anything to your answer?
I think these guys have covered it well. And I think the caution would be anyone that wants to go down the build route, again, just be prepared. All of our companies have spent, tens of millions of dollars and had large teams working on this for years. And so I would just compare your own in-house efforts to that and, give it a real serious scrutiny.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. I mean, yeah, right. But I think you make a good point too, Jason, in that it's not, you got to design the right thing. I mean, I've seen fantastic software systems, and Wordle has generated more income than all of them. And it's about as simple, a model. Okay. And so Matt wants to know, for distributors, where are you seeing AI provide the most immediate ROI and customer benefit? I would say right now, to insert a couple of words. So Andrew, for distributors, where are you seeing AI provide the most immediate ROI and customer benefit?
Yeah, I mean, there are really two use cases we do, both of which have a very immediate impact.
Yeah.
So when we put our recommendations on an e-commerce site, so customers can see, hey, recommended for you, you're buying this, buy this other thing that goes with it, those kind of insights. The impact is like immediate. Like after a month, you're able to see a 10, 15, 20% sales uplift per customer versus what you saw before.
Right.
We're often struck by distributors will say, I thought this was going to take 6 months or a year to ramp. And it's truly like people are clicking and buying the recommendations the day you turn it on. And then on the sales rep side, so when we are putting AI-driven insights in the hands of sales reps, I would say that it's really a question of how fast can you get the rep to adopt the recommendation. So that ends up being the limiting factor more than the recommendations or the technology itself. Typically, we see early wins come right away. So like the first week reps start using AI-driven recommendations, they're going to make some AI-driven sales like that very week typically, which is really good for early momentum.
Right.
And then from there, it's just all about management. Like how much can I really help my reps through the behavior change to turn this from a, hey, here's a cool thing we're trying out, to like, this is what we do, every day, when you visit this customer, pick one thing that's an opportunity you're going to raise with that account. We typically see that adoption can go very, very fast, but that ends up being the biggest limiting factor.
Okay, good. Got it. Okay. And Graham, you work in a whole different part of what distributors do. So you're going to probably give us different point of view based on your experience, but where are you seeing distributors get value out of an ROI out of AI today?
I think firstly, it depends on what the goals of the organization is, right? Because not every time somebody engages in a project with AI is there, true, clearly defined ROI. Sometimes it's just the cost of doing business, right? But I think on my side, in the customer service group, oftentimes that comes down to efficiency, that comes down to accuracy, and a lot of times it'll also involve employee churn. So, if we're able to save 50% of a team's day that's focused on manual tasks, right? And then also increase the experience on their customer side, reduce the amount of errors in fulfillment, right? Most of the time you're going to see some sort of ROI in 3 to 6 months after getting off the ground. But it really, again, depends on what the goals are, what the challenges are within the organization, and what level of efficiency can you truly gain, because somebody might be able to get close to 100% touchless processing, whereas another company might only be able to save 20 to 30% on the time being spent because there are so many other checks.
Yeah, or that's just a more complex type of product that they sell.
Exactly.
Sure. Jason?
Customers come to you because you're experts in the product. And if a user comes to your website and they do a search for a term that they know they use every day, if they ask your sales rep about that, their sales rep will know what you mean and validate the fact that you are an expert. But if your website either doesn't recognize the term, does recognize the term, but serves up a bunch of stuff that isn't relevant or remotely applicable, or 3, displays the results in an order that matches the needs that you have that day, then you don't look like an expert. You look like you're incompetent. It's not that your users aren't going to say, oh, you know what, they just haven't tuned their solar engine the right way. Oh, they're just, they're making do with, it's bad data. Your customers will look at your experience and say, these people don't know what I need. They're not people I should go to for my business. And so when we're looking at, we talk about day one ROI at Bloomreach, which is because we have a platform that is built on, over a decade of experience working with the leading distributors in respective industries, whether it's industrial MRO, electrical, plumbing and HVAC, industrial and commercial goods. We've already spun up an understanding, a semantic understanding, where it's understanding not just what your users say, but what they need. And getting them from that homepage to a relevant product that they can consider faster is where the ROI comes from. Because not only do you get them there, but they believe, oh, they know what I'm looking for. They understand my business. I should trust them. I'm going to add this to the cart and buy.
Got it. Okay, good. Those are some very thoughtful answers. And I want to talk about what distributors need to do to get ready to implement AI. And Graham, why don't we start with you and talk a little bit about data? So there's product data, there's customer data, there's transaction data, there may be other data sets. If so, let me know if you want to include them. But how do distributors need to get their data ready so that they can implement these AI tools? And my assumption is if they've been good at other previous digital things, they're going to be in a better place than if that's not been a priority for them. What do you think, Graham?
I think on my side, it's really 2 things. First, is that data clean and is that data usable, right? Because if we don't have clean data, if it's very murky, then no matter what tool you put on top of that, it's going to be murky and it's not going to be efficient, right? And then also understanding what your capabilities are and the capabilities of the vendor that you're seeking, right? If select vendor only works through maybe APIs, you don't have the sophistication or capability of leveraging APIs, you can only do a flat file transfer, well, then that's not going to be a good fit, right? In reference to kind of that master data governance, if you know that you have problematic master data, try to clean that up the best you can, whether that's investing in an internal resource or looking at some sort of consultant to come in, be able to help you with that.
Excellent. Great. And Andrew, I know you actually manage a lot of the implementations for your company. So I bet you've wrestled with this problem before. You probably even have a checklist or something for customers, right? But what do distributors need to do to get their data ready to implement AI?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say, so in terms of our solution, we have built it to be workable based on wherever you are in your data journey, as long as you have at least a few years of transaction history in an ERP. And so as long as you have that, which as an aside, I think is easy to brush off. It's like, oh yeah, obviously everyone has that. That is a huge asset, right? That is a hugely valuable data set that I think is definitely not to be discounted or underappreciated. We have found that customers that even who come to us and say, oh yeah, our data is kind of messy, but they have that in place, are able to get really powerful insights that are actionable and usable and drive additional sales. And so that's sort of the key minimum threshold, at least for us. I would say additional things you can do that will put you in an even better position. Rich product data is really, really good, right? So think great product descriptions, images, all of those kind of things. It's a good, obviously, for your end customers' experience on e-commerce, but it also helps power like natural language processing models that can, read product descriptions, understand what the product is, identify substitutability, things that go together, things like that. And then I would say customer and lead enrichment data, the same thing too, right? So if you have leads, anything you can get about that leads, industry, size, location, any of those kind of things, those are all really powerful data points that you can feed into an ML model.
Excellent. Thank you. Jason, you want to add anything to that?
I'm going to throw you for a loop, Ian.
Surprise.
Because as Ian knows, I spent most of the last 10 years or so talking about product data, but these guys covered that. Product data is really important, absolutely. But I would say that the biggest thing that I think is going to keep people from really benefiting from deploying AI is going to be the culture that you've built within your organization. If your senior leadership is still operating from the perspective of, outside sales is the only thing that matters, relationship building via people is the only thing that matters, you're going to struggle to get the resources you need to get access to the kind of people and talent that you need, and to build an effective working relationship across partners. The truth of the matter is that there are so many components of a tech stack that you need to really take advantage of everything there is to know about AI, that it means that your team, your little brain trust that you've built within your organization is going to have to connect with people at Bloomreach, people at Proton, people at Esker. And it's the ability of that team to bring working relationship with all of your partners together and form a coherent, overarching, complete strategy about AI for your company is the thing that's going to let you take advantage of all of these tools you bring in. If you don't have that kind of central brain trust that's going to be leading this, you're going to find there's a lot more friction. You're going to find a lot of finger pointing and blaming, and that just really can really make the road a lot harder to get to success.
Yeah. So you're talking about change management, right? Which was hard enough in the digital era when you could actually go hire people who were experts at digital. Now it's the AI era where those experts they don't exist yet in many cases, or if they do, you can't afford them, right? So this is sort of a unique change management task. And so Andrew, in your experience, how do you respond to what Jason just said about it's not just having the data in place, which maybe you've been preaching and working on for years, but you need to have expertise that you've never had before.
I totally agree with that. And I agree on a couple of things. I think I definitely agree with the change management point, right? This is going to be, if you have our reps team that's implementing something, customer service team, whatever it might be, that's a behavior change for folks. That's not going to happen in one day. You need from leadership down to be really aligned on we are driving this. And then from an expertise standpoint, I think this is really a compelling argument for working with a partner, right? I mean, obviously we've, 3 great ones on this call here. There are other ones out here that, you could take a look at. But folks have said, hey, we have done this for, 20 other customers that look exactly like you, right? Same size, same industry, same vertical, et cetera. And we've known exactly what's worked well for them versus not, and we can share those learnings with you. I think it's just really, really powerful.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And Graham, do you want to add anything to this part of the conversation?
I mean, I think Andrew and Jason, did a great job. The only thing that I would add is just making sure that as well those resources can be engaged. You know, a lot of times we talk with companies that maybe they want to move the project, the business wants to go forward, the executive team is engaged, and then all of a sudden they realize that they have a 6-month roadmap, or they have an ERP upgrade that's pending, they have resources allocated elsewhere. So making sure that you get that IT group involved and ready early is really helpful in being able to mobilize that project.
Yeah, and Ron, who's a friend of the company, has signed up for the conference, just wrote, "This whole discussion on AI is why your conference is so critical and necessary." Thank you, Ron, so much of this incredible insight and so much more every day. Well, thank you. You know, and it's funny, I wrote an article about this, or where I mentioned this. The first 2 people who signed up for the conference, and 3 of the first 5 were executives who were part of Grainger's digital transformation. So they see it and they have jumped right in, right? Okay, so I'm going to close with this question. You have 1 minute each, because we're coming up on our time limit. AI going to create jobs, it's going to cost jobs, and where is it going to have the most impact on jobs? So Jason, you want to kick us off? You got 1 minute.
Of course, there's going to be an impact on jobs. I think that we're certainly going to see a loss of the low value add, hands-on keyboard, just, you know, type types of roles. I think that certainly much more on the machine learning side there. The question that I think everybody's worried about is what's going to happen with the generative stuff, because that is creative. Like, could it impact writers? Could it impact, you know, your artists? And I think that that's where I see the greatest risk, because those are coming from a collection of averages, right? Generative AI doesn't create brand new creative, like brilliant work. It creates work that is the best average that's possible.
It's derivative.
And so
Right.
The ones that are going to be safe are going to be the ones who are truly the exceptional ones. The other, if you're not truly exceptional, or if you're like only below average, that's where I think could be a risk.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jason. I know I'm at risk. Graham.
Yeah, so I was reading an Accenture article recently, which said that 98% of global executives agree that AI foundation models are going to play an important role in their organization strategies over the next 3 to 5 years, which I found very interesting, right? Which means that AI is here to stay, right? Companies are looking at it. They're looking at where the opportunities are. Obviously, they're looking at the risks for that. I don't think that jobs are going away. Right. I think that there are just going to be new jobs. There's going to be a difference. A lot of times what I see when working with inside sales, when working with customer service groups, maybe AR personnel, is the goal isn't to replace those people with technology. The goal is to eliminate those high friction, high transactional tasks, to free them up to reach out to people, be more proactive, to be more engaging, to help in other departments that, you know, AI isn't sophisticated enough to get involved with yet.
Okay, got it. Thank you. And Andrew, I know this is Proton's point of view, because I've seen it before, right?
Yeah, I would strongly agree with that. I would say
Right.
it's not, you're going to see a change in the skills required to be successful at a given job. The jobs will still be there, but it is going to take a different profile, for example, of sales rep or any job to be successful, right? And so the administrative work might be out. The, you know, kind of data analyst, you know, looking at my customers' data work, that might be out. What's definitely still in is excelling at customer relationships. What's definitely still in is being genuinely consultative to understand their problems and their needs and develop solutions. And so what I would say is, you know, if that's the direction the world is going in, I think the natural question to think about as a distributor is how do I set up my sales team to be one of the teams that has the skills that they need to succeed in the next era?
Yeah. So the bar is getting higher, and you're going to need AI to meet the bar.
Definitely.
To get over the bar. Okay, good. Okay. Bear with me for 1 minute, guys. We're going to do a promo here. We've got on August 9th on Wholesale Change, we will have David Gordon, who's the founder of Channel Marketing Group. He's a really interesting, very well versed and well-connected writer mostly in the electrical distribution industry, but also in HVAC. A brilliant guy. That'll be a lot of fun. That's being brought to you by White Cup, one of our regular sponsors. And then on August 16th, Jonathan Bine, my business partner, will be moderating a panel of distribution executives called Delighted Customers Buy More, How Exceptional Customer Experience Powers Growth and Profits. We'll be welcoming Corey Heigl from Palmer Donovan, Jennifer Jubin at Code Distributing, Jennifer Johnson at MCE Automation, and Joanne Stitzer at Benco Dental. That is a distribution leader panel. Go to distributionstrategy.com for more information. Hey, I really enjoyed this discussion. Thank you all so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it too.
Absolutely. This was fun, Ian. Thanks so much for having us.
You bet. You bet. Okay, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Andrew, Graham, Jason, really appreciate you sharing your expertise with our audience, and hopefully we'll see you in Chicago.
Thanks for playing, Ian.
Thanks for having us.
Bye now.